I was born June 8th, 1986, and I was born in Daejeon in a maternity ward. As soon as I was born, I found this out later that as soon as I was born, I was immediately taken away from my birth mom without her even holding me or being able to see me. So that was news to me later on. But in the beginning, I was there for probably about a few days, and then I went into the system and wound up at Eastern Children's Welfare. And I was there for about 3 months with a foster family. I have both my parents, and I have two older brothers. And I grew up in St. Paul, lived in the same house my whole life, and it's been nice and stable, which is, a godsend to have a nice, stable, normal, at least it was normal to me. Um, Growing up, being adopted didn't seem like it was anything too extraordinary to me. Part of it is there were at least 10 other adoptees in my neighborhood, so it wasn't a big deal to me, but we didn't necessarily play with each other. We knew of each other, kind of the, oh, I see you, but we're not gonna talk about it or even really mention it. I kind of was the adoptee that was trying to do anything to distance myself. I wasn't really trying to embrace it or figure out anything, but I guess I always thought it was kind of hurtful to my parents if I talked about it or thought about it, because there would be nights growing up where I would come down in the middle of the night, open the file cabinet and go look into my file and read my papers and kind of cry and wonder why this happened or why she gave me up and why everything happened and how everything got set in motion. If I could change a few things, one of them would be having my parents be more, or having them push being Korean on me a little bit more, or slash them being more involved in it too. So that way it didn't just seem like I was the only one versus, because I kind of say with finding my birth family, well, my brothers, they also have, a new family too, because it's my family, so it's their family too. And I think that being in it together would have been something that would have been really beneficial. Another thing that I wish I could change is the micro expressions that that are always happening, or at least I'm noticing more of now. Like one time, we ordered from the Chinese place, and then my brothers kind of made fun of the person that answered the phone because they were speaking in broken English. And that kind of made me go, like, okay, I'm really uncomfortable, but this is my family. How do I approach this subject without it being taken out of proportion? It wasn't until probably the middle of college that I kind of hit a breaking point in myself, having so many emotions in me and hiding so many things and not really confronting anything. It all of a sudden it all hit me. And so then I was looking on the internet and was looking at Children's Home Society, which is where I was adopted through, and looking at what the process would be to open the search to look for my birth family, which is kind of how that was the first step for me in reconnecting or trying to find my Korean roots. It wasn't until 2010 that I was talking to some friends and they mentioned the IKAA gathering. And I decided to look that up, and I decided, oh, well, that looks like a good way to go into Korea and try to experience it with, a bunch of other adoptees and just somewhere where it would be more comfortable for me, especially being with other adoptees that have gone through this process of even being in Korea, because that was a big thing. But my search was very, very fast and very extraordinary. I'd say I'm pretty lucky in my search. I started the search in June, in the beginning of June, and I left for Korea at the end of July of that year. I was in Korea for about a week, and then I opened up my email and bam, it says, oh, we found your birth mom. And that was very shocking for me. I just stared at the computer going, wow, like, is this really happening? So then I went downstairs to the grocery store and bought a bottle of soju, drank that, let that sink in, and then, I was like, okay, this meeting's gonna happen in a week or two. So there's still time for it to digest, for it to sink in, and which is good and bad, because then I thought, oh, well, then she still has time to get out of coming to meet me. But this was after the gathering when I actually met her, and that day I was just one of the most nervous I've ever been. I was shaking the whole time. I was just so nervous that on the cab ride there, I lost my phone. So that cost me 50,000 won. But that was well worth it. But luckily I brought a friend with me because I knew I needed some support going to meet my birth mom. And I wanted someone there to experience it with me in case I kind of just black it all out, and someone there can go, okay, this is what happened. This is true, Kip. You're not dreaming this. And so we meet, and it's in this, cold, awkward room that looks like it's still from the 70s. And she comes in, and, we kind of look at each other, and then she immediately starts sobbing. And I don't know how to react to that. I'm kind of going, okay, who is this person? Is this really her? And then as she's sobbing, the social worker tells me to give her a hug. And I'm like, okay, this is really awkward. So I give her an awkward hug. And then as I'm doing that, I notice her eyebrows. And her eyebrows are the exact same as mine. And then that's when I lose it and go, this is real, this is happening. I don't really have really a relationship with my birth mother. Part of that is I'm still a secret. Still, that's the main thing, and I've met her twice. So for a total of 4 hours, I've met my birth mom, or been with her for a total of 4 hours in 28 years. Which is kind of hard to think about. But in that perspective, it makes me go, okay, there's still a long way for us to go, and just because it's hard right now, it doesn't mean it's going to be hard in the future. Part of it is I know or at least I give myself the excuses of, oh, it's the Korean culture, which, some of it could be true and some of it is true. Or some of it could be that she's just scared. Because I have 4 younger half-sisters, and two of them are still in school, so I know that they could be discriminated against, so I'm not too upset about that, since I know there are those social stigmas. But I have found out that I do have my birth grandparents are still alive, and I have many aunts and uncles that I don't know of yet, but Last time I met with my birth mom, I asked if I would be able to meet my grandmother someday, and she said no, which I kind of took that as, okay, she's really old, so she's very old school and traditional, and so she might not accept me or accept the situation. When I was opening my file at the Children's Home Society, they go, "Oh, well, did you know this is, what happened? This is your intake letter," which I've never seen in my life. It wasn't in any of my documents that my parents had. So there was some of that of the horror adoptee stories of stuff not adding up or stuff getting switched or not being placed in the right file. But in that letter, it said that my birth mom was raped, and that's how I was conceived. And when I heard that, I kind of took it with a grain of salt because I knew there were stories of that's how the single unwed mothers, some of them had to say that they were raped or so that they didn't name the father, or they didn't have to name the father, at least to the adoption agencies. And so I was like, okay, I always kind of knew that could be a possibility because there was no father on my birth certificate or my birth records, and my mother was 18 and single and middle school educated. So I kind of always guessed it or thought that could be a possibility because that's what you kind of grow up as an adoptee knowing or thinking that's how the stories I told you, or at least many stories. And so when I get to meet my birth mother, I asked the social worker that was translating if she could ask my birth mother if she knew who my birth father was, so that way I could ask it without being too invasive. And then the translator asks me, "Didn't they tell you?" And I'm go, "Oh, okay." So then I kind of knew that, okay, it probably what did happen. And so then I waited for my meeting with my birth mom to be over. And then I asked the translator if what was stated in the file was true or if she thought so. And the social worker said yes. So after that, I kind of realized, okay, I'm a child born of rape. And that kind of I struggled with for a while, going, is that why there's some badness in me or there's some evilness in me, or is that why I do some of these stupid things that I do, not the smartest choices? And it took me quite a while, it took me a few years to get over that, well, he's not part of me. He's not me, I'm me. So that's something that I've come to a conclusion that he's not part of me. It's just his DNA. He doesn't really make me who I am. I'm 28, and right now I am currently in the process of applying to graduate school. Part of my statement of intent is to I want to go into getting my master's in marketing and to hopefully do something with international adoptees. One of my ideas is to do a guerrilla project of having a bunch of baby dolls in front of City Hall in Seoul and having them marked which ones have found their birth family and which ones are searching for them, just to show the Korean public what actually is happening and how many people are actually searching and how many people have actually found their birth family, which is really low. I want it to be acceptable in Korea for the birth families to say, I have an adopted child, or my child is adopted and I did have to send them away, or I did have to give them up for certain reasons, but there's no shame in that and there's nothing wrong with that.